Welcome to the Advanced Investor Alliance podcast, where investors achieve their full potential through real and authentic content. This podcast is to inspire you to go beyond the mediocre results of the masses.
Hey, commercial real estate world, investors, and even a few entrepreneurs out there. Today's episode is going to be a banger. Can you say banger, Zach?
Banker.
Banker. Yes. F a banker. That's the title of it. No, it's not. This is actually a really podcast that I've always been kind of interested in doing for a long time. But Mr. Mike Lewis is extremely busy because he's a real entrepreneur. And I was thinking about what to title this episode, and I was like, this is the happiest investor I've ever met at a local real estate meetup. I mean, I've known you for over 10 years or longer. I've seen tremendous amount of transactions, unique, weird, and the hardest, turning SHIT into dollar bills. And then seeing you flip a multifamily unit to a friend of mine and walking him through that process, and then you doing a creative transition out disposition for my friend, creating some amazing equity and then charging it back and then not paying. I don't know. There's just so many, and you just smile through the whole process. And this is going to be a really good episode to kind of know your train of thinking and how you operate, how you approach a deal or transaction. Are they transactional? Do you look at them on the long-term gain? I mean, I'm just 100 questions are popping to mind just on that 14 unit. But before we get into all that jazz, how did you even get into real estate in general? Like, where'd you come from? Are you an OSU person?
I'm an OSU person, sure.
Yeah, I saw the orange cup and I got nervous.
Oh, come on, man. I tell people all the time, everybody makes mistakes. I give OU people one mistake. They can change their life.
I've only heard good things about OSU. We have one of those little children in my house. I don't know how, but that's all. All his gear is OSU. And I'm like, Maxwell, do you know that your mother is an OU alum?
He's like, no, it's fine. It's fine.
It's the wrestling program. I don't know what it is, but kudos to you being an OSU fan. Whatever.
Grad.
Yeah, that's right.
I'll answer your question.
They give out
I have a real one. It's not on the wall anywhere. I'm not that guy. Anyway, you asked about real estate. So, golly, it would have been late 2010. I went to the office. So I'm business partners with Dr. Bellardo in a couple of eye clinics. We have Advanced Laser and Cataract Center, and then we've got a clinic out in Chickasha. But I went to the office one day, and I told Dr. Bellardo, I was like, I'm going to buy a rent house. And he's like, all right, that's a good idea. You should talk to Robert Elder. And I said, what does Robert know about rent houses? And he said, oh, Robert's got like 300 of them. I was like,
yeah.
When can we talk to Robert Elder? And he said, how about lunch today? I'm like, let's do it. So anyway, long story short, started buying some single families in 2011, and Robert kind of helped me through the first couple dozen.
I remember he was his first mentor.
Yeah.
Or you were in.
Yeah.
I remember that. You guys were hooked up, and it was great to have someone at that level.
Well, it is, and what's crazy is I was just a sponge. I mean, I think anybody that we've ever taught, and I think anybody that you've ever taught, if they do the things that you tell them to do,
just do it.
They're really successful.
Yep. And it works.
And so Robert's like, well, he's got 300 houses and I have 0. So let me listen to this guy.
Man, so I can't remember. Last time he was at 450 when I was spending some time with him. Then he got to 500, and then he's like 600, and then he just bounced out and moved to Hawaii.
Yeah, he's in Hawaii. We were actually texting this weekend. I've got a project I was asking him some questions about. So he's enjoying the fruits of his labor, right?
That's right. Mm-hmm. You need to. So that's how you heard about it. You met him. He sparked your interest. Was there any books that you read during that process? Of course, Rich Dad.
Oh, yeah, Rich Dad. I think my favorite real estate book is Millionaire Real Estate Investor, just because it kind of
Gary Keller.
Yeah, it just kind of walks you through, like, buy $1 million, hold $1 million, and then you get $1 million, and it just kind of.
It's a secret weapon book. Yeah. Blue cover.
So when you started, did you start just straight buying rentals, or did you start wholesaling like everybody else does? Or?
So no, I mean part of this entrepreneurial thing, having a business. I would say I'm a lazy real estate investor. I don't search too hard for deals. I don't flip deals. I don't go, if a wholesaler brings it to me, if it's on the MLS, I'm buying it. Or if it's somebody connecting me. I mean, we've made a lot of friends. And so somebody's like, hey, we got this 10-unit building for sale. Yeah, I want that. You guys know I want that. So that's kind of how we find our deals. But The only things we've sold a 16-unit multifamily and a 7-unit multifamily. And that's the only things we've ever sold.
Now, you were picking up little rentals as you go. You still have that portfolio as well?
Still do, yeah.
Okay. Now, I remember, didn't you buy something by the airport? Those like a dilapidated blocks of 4 units. Did you ever buy those?
Yeah. So
those just keep getting into my mind.
Yeah,
I think I walked on that deal, and I think you took that deal, and you got a better deal than I would have got it for. I can't remember, but they were like shells. Like they looked like a military compound.
Yeah, exactly. There was a whole bunch of them. We bought one. We actually bought it from some guys that put a little lipstick on it, and then we bought it, put a little more lipstick on it, and eventually we sold it. But that one's not my favorite deal, which is why you sold it. I think that's of the 2 things that we've sold, that's the one I'm happy about. Every time I drive by there, I'm like, thank the Lord I don't own that anymore.
Did you get shot? I mean,
no shots. But I mean,
drive by.
My wife, we do this together. So she's a massive part of the team. She keeps, our perspectives are so different. That's something that we've really leaned into. But if I can't take her there and feel comfortable with it, I'm not buying it. Yeah.
That's how I bought my first apartment. Same scenario. I was like, Shanae, go look at this property. Would you live there? So single family, multifamily, has it always been multifamily commercial on your mind? Or did you start out, as Zach was saying, not the wholesale route. Did you go the single family route for a couple of years? Tell us more about that.
Yeah. So initially we did we're going to do single family, then we're going to do multifamily. Just because that's what everybody thinks is the natural progression of a real estate investor, right? Mm-hmm. So we did single family for the first 3 years, and then bought a couple small multifamilies. The one you referenced, the 16-unit that we sold down on the south side, was kind of our first one. But everything we've bought is just garbage, and then we put it back togetger and make it nice. And honestly,
like Robert Elder,
not that much. Not that much.
He's not going to listen to this, so don't worry.
No, we like to have. Again, I like houses that my wife can go to in the daylight. That's kind of the threshold.
So okay, the one that you sold to my friend, is that the one you're referencing? I'm talking about. There's one. Didn't you buy some kind of terrible property near the airport?
Yeah, there's Southwest 29th in Portland.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that property.
Yeah.
It was looked like a hotel, kind of like blocks.
Yeah, just like a block.
They were all single. This other one was a 2-story.
Yeah, it was a 2-story condo. They're nice.
Yeah, they were okay. So we're talking 2 different things.
Yeah, 2 different things. But yeah, I'm up. That's the one thing that stings me. I wish I hadn't sold that one, because
I know
it's worth over $1 million today, and I sold it for like $580.
Well, you flipped that to my friend. My friend calls me, and I'm like, Mike Lewis, how do you know him? How'd you guys meet?
I don't remember if he came to a RIA, but he was like, hey, we take me out to lunch and talk to me, and so then he told me he was like your neighbor, and I'm like, why are you calling me? Steven knows more than I do. Talk to Steven.
Well, let's tell you a little background. I met him volunteering at WizKids,
okay.
And he's an executive at Devon Energy.
Yeah,
and he had like a white collar shirt on and a t-shirt on, and I love real estate and I want to be rich, and he was like, I don't want to work anymore, and then next thing you know, he's buying a freaking apartment building from you.
Yep.
So, and then I walked that thing. He was struggling with his management, and I'm like, I mean, this is a deal. Now, later, I see it was a smoking deal.
It was a great deal. It was. But I needed to get rid of it at the time. My property management skills were not good. And something I've learned here recently is it doesn't matter if my property management skills are good.
Good point.
I need other people's property management skills to be good.
Who, not how.
No, that's really good. The property management thing, I think, is critical for moving on into commercial. I know that you have a passion right now. You're working on some really big deals in the $7 million figure. Property manager is a critical aspect of that. So when did you make that transition in your mind? Hey, I'm done with this single family. I mean, you dabbled with these multifamilies. They were small boutique, right?
Yeah.
So you could handle them. They're like just a little bit bigger than a single family.
Right.
And scales, economies of scale, like you could kind of do 2 or 3 and have it rented, have cash flow going, a lot better than a single family, because if you don't have it rented, you're broke. Mm-hmm. You know, with apartment building, you can have 2 of them rented and you at least got some of your taxes paid. So when was the environment for you where like, okay, I'm going all in a commercial? Because that's all I hear you talk about now. That's all I hear you say. You ask. That's the only questions you ask me. Tell me what was that transition in there? Was it because of when you bought the I Institute? Like what? Like how did that chemistry go down?
Yeah, no, I mean I think the get into commercial really started in 2020, kind of when COVID shut the world down. We had just bought 4 or 5 single family houses, and we're in the middle of rehabbing them when the world shut down. So it was, me and my wife Rachel and the kids, and we just kind of did as much as we could to try to save money because you just didn't know what was going on. And
so are they going to bounce? Is the government going to pay for them?
Yeah,
they don't have a job,
right? And you know, I mean,
interesting. So you're thinking buy commercial?
Yeah. So, well,
everyone's dying.
Yeah, but you know, every time the economy goes down, you need to be where are the opportunities, right? And
well
so we were sitting there thinking, okay, we bought these 5 houses. And in talking to you and some of our other friends that were into commercial, it's like buying a 10 unit or a 15 unit or a 40 unit is about the same amount of work as buying one house, but it's a 10x return. And, you know, I mean, you guys know Jonathan and Amin.
Yeah.
You know, I tell Jonathan all the time, he just plays with one more zero than we were. Like, I want that extra zero.
Yep.
And that's the difference going from...
we got to get them on the show. Good point.
Yeah, they're good dudes. I like them.
Yeah. They're just fascinating. Like, they did it.
Oh yeah, and Jonathan will tell you. I mean, he calls me all the time. I think I'm one of his counselors, and it's like, why do you call me? You got 10 times as much stuff as I do, but I appreciate it.
Up to like a 500 units.
Yeah, they are
something like that.
Yeah, and he won't get out of bed for something that doesn't make him $1 million. I'm like, that's where we need to be.
If you don't, when he's talking about Jonathan, if you go to the SavvyRadioshow.com, type in Jonathan, he's the one that walked in neighborhoods and knocked on doors of his very first transition. It's a great story. I interviewed him like
early.
Many moons
it was early. It was right after mine, I think.
They said they were going to come back on the show. So.
Yeah.
All right. So you're COVID. All hell's breaking loose. Literally, I'm like, I was scared to death as well. And you're like, okay, I got to make more money. Well, not necessarily, but hey, I got to do my investment strategies. And you just started researching and diving into commercial.
We started looking at commercial, and then I think we were part of the first Van Cowenberg commercial real estate class, right?
Class.
Yeah,
that's right.
Zach was there. And
that's right, Lorenzen.
Yeah.
Yep.
So there were, I don't know.
I bought a deal during that deal.
There were 10 of us, and so for us, a lot of our success comes around getting in the room with the right people. Now, that doesn't mean we're necessarily going to be business partners, but it's just the brain power in the room that you're like, oh, these people can do it. I mean,
they're illiterate. They can do it.
But that's how I felt.
Look at Zach. He could do it.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate that.
That's how I felt the first time I walked into the RIA in 2010. I'm like, man, some of these people are not very smart. We can certainly figure this out.
Some of them got stains on their shirt.
Sure, right.
You're worried like,
what are we doing here?
Same shirt.
Yep.
But no, I mean, getting in the room with the right people and listening to deals. And in that class, it wasn't apartments. It wasn't certainly pointed that way. We talked about retail and industrial and, walked with Dave Torres into some huge building that I was like, I don't even know what.
60,000.
I don't know who would rent this. This
Half
is
the
terrifying.
equipment in there, we had no clue what it was.
Yeah. But just opening the eyes to somebody does rent that. Somebody's an expert in it. It's just, I really... My wife and I, we talk about it. We understand housing. We understand the need for housing. And no matter what happens in the economy, if everybody's right and retail falls apart over the next couple of years, people still need a place to live. So that's kind of where we landed.
I think it's really boils down to get Zach here in a second, but it really boils down to the educational level. I think that you were a seeker and that you didn't know. I didn't know. And I just think it just takes time to you pick up one nugget. It leads in. I remember that when we were walking through that building and TI. I'm like, what's that?
Yeah.
And also just figuring out what aspect of commercial you want to go in.
That's the tough.
As far as multifamily, retail, industrial. I always thought I want to go straight into multifamily. And now the more I read about it and look at it, I'm like, why the hell was I thinking that?
It's weird too. The national progression, everyone goes from single family to apartment. And of course, I did that naturally. But I don't understand that. That's not my desire. I get turned off on multifamily.
Yeah,
it's weird.
Well, and like Russell, I mean, we talked to Russell about it, and he's the same way. He just wants retail or a industrial tenant that he never has to talk to and just collects checks.
Yeah, mechanic is great for me. What's interesting on that side of things is when I was talking to a young entrepreneur that comes to AIA in the beginning, he was scared of a single tenant. And I didn't even realize, I see what you're saying. It does spread your risk over the multi-family, but to me, a single family, if you have it organized and enough cash flow and some CapEx, anyway, this is a book I'm reading. Anyway, let's get into multifamily. During that time when we connected in class, you had an LOI, you had something under contract, and you were doing some intense due diligence and you were kind of had some moments.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we have a small eye clinic in Chickasha, so we drive there all the time.
I didn't know that. That's
And
cool.
Right across the street from USAO, there was a 37 unit building, and it was always vacant, and boarded up. And I'm like, we need that. We need to have.
Well,
that.
it just sounds. I remember when you told me, it just sounds gnarly, and I'm like, you went through the due diligence, you hired the attorney. We're going to get all these details, and I'm like, I can't believe the deal failed.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really like it just makes sense. Across from a school, I think there's a huge lesson here.
Oh yeah.
Across from a school, an apartment building, and you had it under contract at a right price. What'd you have it under contract?
500,000
For how many units?
37 units.
All right, what's that, Zach?
Good question.
Cheap. Cheap.
No, you had a question, Zach. Sorry, homie.
Do what?
Did you have a question? I'm sorry, I interrupted you
I
like
was
5
going to
times.
see how much time and effort did you put into this, even though it didn't end up working out. But
Yeah, that's a good question.
No, that's a great question. I mean, and this is something we talked about in class. Just commercial is a little more expensive than residential, and you've got to go in and have real contractors, real attorneys, real everything. So we hired Kendra, the attorney, and she wrote us up a contract, which was great because we ended up needing to get out of it, and the seller didn't want to let us out. And she basically sent a one sentence thing to the title company that basically said, refer to paragraph whatever. My client wants to get out. Send him his earnest money back.
That's awesome.
It was pretty cool.
So it was worth hiring the attorney.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So hold on, let's get to the beginning of the deal. 500,000, 37 units. It comes down to $13,000 per unit. I mean, I'm just peeing my pants. Like, how did just not go well?
Yeah, right. So
like, think about it. Like, even if you were dumb and you put in 30,000 per unit, I mean, because like that's commercial. It's like $100. Like the deals I'm looking at right now, this property I'm looking in Edmond, it's I'm thinking $100 a square foot to remodel.
Yeah.
So you're thinking that with these units, 1,000 square foot.
Yeah.
$30. How do you not?
And in fairness, that's my single family brain, right? I walk through the place and I'm like, oh yeah, these are small. I can rehab a whole house for 40 G's.
I can buy it in bulk.
Yep.
Yeah, like so we're walking it and I'm like, how bad can this suck, right? So we're worst case scenario.
Awesome.
Worst case scenario, we're in this for 50,000 a unit and where life is good, right?
$900, $800 a
And
unit.
we're right across the street from the college, even in
2% rule.
well, probably not in Chickasha on the smaller ones, but
Still.
yeah, but we feel like it's going to be a great deal because it's going to be newish, right? So then we start talking to the city, and we're like, ooh, maybe this is going to be more of a problem than we thought. So
What'd the city say?
well, there were 3 different buildings. One of them was a burnout, and because of the burnout, they wanted us to do pretty much new everything,
all up the code.
So it needed fire suppression. It needed new everything. That whole building pretty much had to come back down and start over. It had cast iron plumbing, so they wanted the plumbing removed. So once we started putting all the numbers to this, we're like, whoa! Instead of spending $1 million, we're talking north of $2.5 to $3 million. And then you pencil that out, and you're like, that doesn't make any sense to have a brand new $3 million building in Chickasha. I could have a $3 million building in Oklahoma City that would pay better rent.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we started, so we hired better contractors, right? Because we needed not just the handyman electrician, we needed a electric
Professional.
So you're getting Zach's right.
Everything's professional. A couple of professional contractors, and we had 2 professional contractors walk it and give us bids, and they were really close. One was like $3 million, the other was like 2.95.
What was that process like? Chatting with them, were they courting you? Were they what was their attitude towards the project?
We wanted local contractors that had worked with the city of Chickasha before, because Chickasha, any small towns, they do their thing. I mean,
Everybody knows everybody.
We've got a few single families in Chickasha.
Hold on. Did you hear that? That he said, let's just reiterate that. We wanted to work with contractors that have worked with the city. Ingenious. Most arrogant people. I know what I'm doing. I know this for a fact because I'm talking about myself. I'm going to bring in my guy, and I know what I'm doing.
Yep.
And you're super savvy, dude. You bring in, they know them. They have the language. They're communicating. They know.
They're local.
They know who the inspector is. Smart. So how'd you find these 2 guys?
So we actually,
that's got to be hard. Chickasha is a small town. It's also it's the low income of Oklahoma.
Yeah. So it is. So, it's low.
Section 8. The most Section 8 people per capita is in Chickasha.
So we went to the city after we put it under contract and said, hey, we've got this project, kind of walk us through what you think needs to be done. Because obviously they know the building because it's an eyesore. And then we asked them for their list of approved contractors. And then we basically narrowed that down to the couple that were big enough to handle a scale. Because that's one of the things we took out of class is you almost pay for speed. That's something we've learned over the last few years.
Amen.
Is we're paying for speed because the faster we can get something finished, get it rented, cash flowing, the better off we are versus we'll save a few bucks, but now our carrying cost is tremendous. So anyway, we went to the city. We met with a couple different contractors, and they both had they know what needs to be done. They've seen this kind of project before, but they had their own electricians walk it, their own plumbers walk it. So we really walked it with the two GCs and then let them walk it with their own people and get back to us. But
how long was that process?
3 weeks total.
Okay. So you're a busy guy. You run a eye center. So, you just walk through them one time with them, or you just give them the keys? Yeah, we put a lockbox on it, of course. So we gave them the lockbox code after we walked it. But we walked it for probably an hour and a half with each contractor, just kind of room to room. This is our vision. This is what we want to do. Okay. Here's what we know from the city. And, they, of course, reached out to the city. But the city, one of the things they wanted to do that was just adding price, talk about money. They wanted not just Romex, but they wanted some kind of sheathed Romex that commercial grade,
$100,000 to the electrical bid just for the holy cow.
Was that new code?
It was just something they were putting in there. It wasn't in their code book, but it's something they wanted.
Interesting.
Yeah, and
was there firewalls separating them?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you would have to add fire suppression in just that one building instead of all of them? The whole thing.
Not a quick little $500 over the range. They wanted a sprinkle.
Full sprinklers.
So that would be my first deterrent.
Exactly. So they wanted new electrical service. Everything had to come. So it was just
trying to find a transformer.
Yeah. So it was just
because you're like post-COVID.
Exactly. Yeah. So when you started running it, it's like we were up close to $100,000 a unit in Chickasha, and you're just like, oh my god, that math doesn't pencil out.
Damn. Okay, so let's talk about this owner. What was that like? You had sounded like you had a little conflict trying to get out of the deal. Why was it vacant? How long was it vacant for? Do you know?
So it had been vacant for at least 3 years. This guy kind of bought it with a package of other stuff. So it's funny because I actually tried to buy Rachel and I tried to buy the Palms in Altus, which was owned by the same guy that
Palms, like the vacation place.
Right?
What?
It's an apartment building in Altus.
And
this one in Chickasha also called the Palms. So I've actually talked to the old owner of both of these buildings several times on the phone. So he kind of gave me all this skinny on this thing. Anyway,
that's good.
So this guy had bought it, and it. On the tax records, it looked like he had bought it for $400,000, but he really bought it for like $250,000, and just put that on there so he could, gouge the next person. The kind of greater fool theory.
Interesting. Gotcha. So you're getting a deal for $500,000.
Yeah. So you think you are until you dive in. So anyway,
interesting.
We passed. The current owner put a TPO roof on
just to salvage the deferred maintenance.
Yep, and that. I don't know. That's not going to help because all the studs and stuff were rotted all the way through all the buildings because of the
So he just covered it up.
And then ended up selling it to somebody else recently who was going to use this particular owner as a contractor.
Wait a minute. You're talking about right now?
Yeah, now.
After you?
After me. But I don't know how much you guys pay attention to Chickasha.
Oh, yeah. That's on my radar.
The fires, the fires of the sanitizers. There were 3 buildings, like commercial-sized buildings, that had hand sanitizer that was not approved that caught on fire and burned to the ground. And the guy that owned
didn't know that
I tried to buy the building from was a part of that. So he's
he's not around anymore. Probably.
I don't know. I mean, there's some news to it. I mean, you can look up the news. I won't spread stuff.
Speaking of arsonists, here's an interesting thing that this is true story from an attorney.
I mean, I don't think I'd go straight arsonist on this one, but.
This is a true story. So the city would not let them kind of rehab a certain property. Okay.
Right.
This is just this is fiction. Okay. But I'm just saying, listen to this crazy concept that an attorney told me. It's not fraud if a house burns down if they don't have insurance on it. So they let this thing burn down, but they didn't have insurance on it.
Right.
The city was balking them because it was a historic, or they didn't want them to tear it down. but they wanted the lot. So they dropped the insurance. My understanding is that they dropped the insurance.
Burn it to the ground.
The city couldn't do anything to it.
Build new.
But they don't know. But he's like, the attorney was like, well, that's kind of an arsonist charge pending somewhere.
Yeah.
I'm just like, wow, that's a fascinating, because like if you had insurance on it, it would be. And I'm not saying, folks, you should be burning your buildings down because you can't cash flow. I'm just saying, I just thought that was like, wow, there's so many things, the way people think. Like, hey, let's light sanitizer on fire.
Well, yeah, I don't know.
Or accidentally.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there, but I think you should have a little tagline. AIA does not condone lighting things on fire.
Yeah.
Or here's something, Zach and I are into mountain biking. You should be too. But, random people are sending me, New York is burning down because of all the lithium batteries.
Right.
Okay. Just negative news. Like, we can't have e-bikes anymore. I mean, it's just like one isolated case of, and all these, this is just thing I read in the article. All these things have been going on for years. Nothing has happened. This one case, now we're all going to go to hell.
Right.
New York is going to ban all e-bikes. Isn't it just interesting? I mean, now we're going to ban all sanitizer.
Yeah, all hand sanitizer.
Yeah, because it has alcohol in it.
That's right.
Okay. Moving on.
So, back to this. Is this project still going on now, or
it's still I drive by it every time I go to Chickasha. It's still boarded up.
So they sold it? No.
Yeah, but nothing has happened to it since.
So the guy sold it. It's interesting. When the class and when I bought that medical building,
yeah,
I love to drive by there. It's still sitting there
exactly the way it was.
So the long story, I sold this building, and this gal that bought it, this dentist, she said she was going to scrape it and build a whole brand new dentist facility. She got $1 million loan.
Still sitting there.
It's still sitting there
because they don't know to pay for speed.
Exactly. I think it's very critical. I think a lot of young entrepreneurs out there that don't know this thing called future expenses, CapEx, marketing, payroll, all these things you have to kind of really calculate. I remember when I started really diving into taking over distressed property at a multi-level, is that the stabilization will not happen for 12 months, usually to 2 years. So there's a project that I'm working on in Katy, Texas. We're thinking 3 years before we even see any kind of ROI, and we have to have hundreds of thousands of dollars in the bank sitting there
as
just to pay bills.
Yep.
Interest reserve. Ooh, good call. So what else would you learn out of this transaction in Chickasha? I mean, you were excited. It seems like a no-brainer deal. $13,000 per unit, but you just said $100,000. So you were thankful you got out.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think the end-ups were, nothing that we kind of weren't prepared for. I mean, we sunk some money into it, obviously, with an attorney. Mm-hmm. We had started, we'd spent a little money on a phase one. So we lost a couple $1,000s to get out of the deal, but we learned a lot.
It's better than a college degree.
Going back on what you did during your due diligence. So it's different than single family where we go walk a house for like, $20,000, put it under contract, buy it.
Exactly.
What all steps did you go through? You had an LOI, you had an attorney, you talked to the city, walked it with different contractors. How long did that take, and like about how many people did you talk to in order to figure out like this is not a deal?
Yeah, the this is not a deal came when we got the bids back from the GCs. We're like, whoa!
And they were $100,000.
They were. They were close to $3 million for the project, which would have put the whole project
$80,000 per unit.
Yeah, which is just.
But we don't even know. Is that because of all the new upgrades?
Upgrades, cost of construction.
So they figured all that out. You figured all that out. Like, okay, increase the bid. Because we budgeted it when we were analyzing in class.
$30,000, $40,000 a door.
Yeah, we were like, worst case scenario, $50,000. I was like, I can't remember my number. It was like 37, 42.
But we didn't know there was cast iron that had to be jackhammered out all the foundations.
Or
we didn't know the wood was rotted in like all 3 buildings had leaks in the roof. The one was fire, so it had a gaping hole, like a 20-foot hole. But the other ones had leaks in the flat roof that were just running and rotting all the wood. So it was basically like studs up, which, you're basically doing brand new construction, which at what are you billing? $100 a foot.
So how long was Zach said that? Yeah. Like, how long was that process? Like,
so start to finish, we took about 4.5 weeks to bail out. So
that's pretty quick then.
So a month and a half.
Yeah. So it was,
and a couple $1,000. I sound like you got away with pretty
That's a month and a half, but talking to your attorney, the city, and the contractors and coordinating all that, they must have been on their toes to be able to get all that done.
But we knew, I mean, once we had the thing kind of tied up, we went to the city the next day.
Gotcha. You weren't waiting
and
around.
we went to the GC, you know, after we got the list of the GCs, we narrowed that down the day after that and started getting them on the phone. And everybody wants that action. And the banks in Chickasha were super excited to do the deal because in a small community like that, everybody drives by that place and look, this is so ugly. How can we fix that? And we're like, we want to fix it.
Right. So you got homage per se. How was your emotional process through this? So, I mean, like me, a new project, I got this deal, I negotiated. It was like a balloon that was deflating every day. I mean, like, was there highs and lows? And how did Rachel handle this? I mean, because it's $3 million construction. I mean,
yeah.
Well, before that, you budgeted 50,000 a unit.
We were thinking maybe $1 million and a half to fix it. So if we were all in at $2 million, we'd have been, let's do this deal, let's make it happen.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, you guys know me, everybody else doesn't, but I'm pretty happy. I don't think things really bother me very much.
Yeah, you're the happy investor, remember?
Right. So I'm just kind of like, hey, if it works, great. This is going to be super fun. We drive by it all the time. If it doesn't,
I work down there.
But Rachel is very much like, does it cash flow? That's her only. That's her only question to me is, does it make money? And if the answer is meh, she's like, we're not buying it. And if the answer is yes, she's like, well, we'll buy it.
I just have an epiphany. I'm not joking. So my accountant, Steven, does it make? She asked me those exact same words. Does it make money? Well, I could. No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
So don't buy it.
Exactly.
I was like, wow, mean girl.
And that's her. So the whole time she's like, at all of our projections, it's making money, it's making money, it's making money.
That's you and I with a happy investor.
As soon as we had those GC meetings, she goes, we're out. I mean, we got out of the because we took my dad. My dad's like our personal realtor, so he likes to tag along. So it's Rachel, my dad, and I meeting with this contractor. I think we had our granddaughter. We walk out of the office.
Granddaughter.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. We walk out of the office and she's just shaking her head. She's like, we can't buy this. I'm like, I know.
I think that's the great thing about being an entrepreneur. We always have the positive outlook. It's going to work, and if it doesn't work, I'm going to figure it out. That's the true entrepreneur.
Yep.
Regardless if we're going to lose money, but we could see it stabilizing at one point in time.
What's hard to grasp is you don't see how much headaches that few $1,000s actually saved you.
Oh.
And you probably never will, but you got to realize, you got to trust your due diligence that it was.
Let's say it wasn't for the class, right? Say we didn't have you guys and Michael to bounce things off of, and we didn't know Kendra. I'm going to buy that on a standard commercial real estate contract from OREC.
Yeah, I think we went 30 minutes around and around about.
Oh yeah, we're going to put 5Gs down. We're going to do the thing. And as a single family investor, I'm still thinking I can fix that thing for 40 a unit, and then we're the greater fool. And you're knee deep in that thing.
The city would have hammered you.
For $1.5 million, the city breaks us off. I mean, that's a bankruptcy project
and that
for
was,
me.
That was COVID, rising price on materials, and then soon after, interest rates, all that stuff would have been a factor.
And keep in mind, a lot of arrogance involved, not with you, but like, oh, the Chickasha is a small town. They're going to work with me. I hear this a lot about Luther. I hear this in Jones. I hear this in Guthrie. Their principality is not as robust as Oklahoma County. Oklahoma County is the worst. I heard Edmond is the worst. I've also heard Edmond was pretty easy to work with. But, I mean, you think that you're going to get through this process, and you could have got hammered.
Absolutely.
They could have just shut you down, condemned the property. I mean, cities do that.
Well, and we would have been out. I mean, we'd have had bank financing. We'd have had a loan due. I mean, we could have really lost it all there had we not done things the right way. So, but by doing things the right way and seeing that we can live to play another day, we've bought.
And it sucks though, right? You're bummed, like you didn't get it, right? Do you have any kind of emotional?
No, I mean, when I drive by it, I'm like, somebody's dumber than we are.
I think that's a true commercial, true entrepreneur, and I don't know how to articulate that, but I think that's where we go. We compare each other on Facebook. I did 5 more deals this week, and I'm like, I ain't doing a damn thing. And then you lose a deal like this, and you lose money. It's kind of a setback. But reality, what you just said is truth. Like, hey, we're stronger because of this. And the first time I lost $20,000 on a transaction, arrogance, and I took it over master lease, and I should have never bought the damn thing. And I wish I would have been faster. I thought 4 weeks. Good question, Zach. Or what? 4.5 weeks.
4.5.
Yeah,
or 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah, it was no more than that.
And I got an LOI letter accepted. Well, I didn't accept it the other day, last week. We're going to talk about that this week. And I asked for 60 days. They're like 45 days. And I was like, it's interesting why they clipped me for 2 more weeks. I'm like, should I negotiate back? But I don't even know if 45 days is enough time.
It's probably not.
And I'm amazed that you got that done in 40. I mean, every project I've been has been 3 months. Yeah, 3 months minimum.
Well, and I think had we gotten a reasonable bid from the GCs, we probably would have done more. But once that was
number,
yeah,
it makes sense.
And we started looking at it, like, what could we actually shave?
Nothing.
And things that we didn't even think about. Like, they got to build a fence around the property. They've got to get a forklift to drop stuff onto the second level. I'm like, oh, there's all these things in his bid. I'm like, ooh, I got to be better.
Yeah, I have a 2-story building, and every time I try to get something done, we got to go rent the $800 man lift.
Yeah, and porta potties. He had to have porta potties for the guys, and like all these things are in the bid. I'm like, God, I never thought of that.
Yeah.
Did they take an account for theft and all that?
Yeah, well, and
what type of insurance?
Having a storage unit on the property with all the stuff in it, and, so it was just a lot, but it makes you stronger, it makes you better, and then on the next deals, things make more sense, and you ask better questions, you get better due diligence, you have better, all the things get better when you learn something.
Every time I hear Roshan.
Oh, yeah.
Like, okay. Or the way he just analyzes it differently. And every time we connect, every time we have a meeting, we just get better and better. All right, so where's Mike Lewis now? You have a deal in the pipeline right now. Can you tell us a little bit? I know it's still under wraps, but we got 35 minutes here in. I mean, we can go on for days.
Yeah, for sure.
But let's try to wrap this up. And what's your vision? What's your goals and dreams and moving forward? And tell us a little bit about this transaction.
Yeah. So a little framework, kind of where we are now. We've pretty much, we haven't bought a single family this year. We've been into the multifamily. We've got 2 multifamily deals underway. We've got a 10 unit that we're working on, a 13 unit that we're working on.
Nice.
And both of those are almost wrapped. The 10 unit, we're doing the last rehab. It'll be finished by the end of this week.
You're holding them?
Holding
Are they here in the metro?
Yeah, Southside and Capitol Hill. Okay. And then we've got one the Edmond one is right across the street from UCO.
Okay.
And really the idea was for us to compare solid Class C and solid Class B. And we've done both at the same time.
And now this one in Edmond, is it a C moving into a B, or it's already original?
It's a B. Well, by year you might say it's a C. Location you'd say it's an A.
Right.
It's at the corner of 2nd and Bryant.
Okay.
Well, that's the closest retail corner, which is probably one of the nicest retail corners in Edmond.
Is that the one with Starbucks?
There's Starbucks right there on the corner. There's Dutch Brothers across the street.
Right.
You got Lowe's. You got Walmart, Target.
Which is weird about the Dutch Brothers. This FYI, it used to be a taco place,
right?
And then they changed it up. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm studying retail right now, which the world is ending with retail. But it was
a good time to get some, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's another episode. So it's over there. How'd you find the deal? So you were referred from somebody?
No, it was actually a pocket listing from somebody that we knew.
Okay.
So they got to double broker the deal, which is fine. But it's exactly what we were looking for. It was a smaller kind of boutique place that needed some love.
Okay.
So we've got in there and we've renovated 7 of the 12, and then there's a single family house that's attached to it. So we call it 13. But we've already hit our rent targets with just the renos that we've done. And then as these people that are in there, their leases come up, we either move the rent up
transition.
Or send them somewhere else.
Was it a distressed property when you got it?
It wasn't totally distressed. I mean, it's built in the late 60s, but solid brick. It's just ugly. It was ugly. Now it's beautiful. The landscaping's amazing. The lobby looks amazing.
You got a lobby,
dude. It's like the entryway. It's a 12-unit entryway. It's really cool.
So it's one building,
one big building, and then there's a single family house on the same legal, so it's kind of connected. But the landscape was overgrown when we got it. We cleaned it all up. It looks great.
So tell us about the seller. Were they trying to exit? What was their goal?
So the seller's a single family investor that did the whole, I want to buy a multifamily, and their property management was not good at running the multifamily because they're single family kind of lower end stuff. And they admitted, hey, we think we could probably make this work. Our management just doesn't support it. And we're like, well, good for us.
Pause. This brings us back to the original thing that I wrote down in your notes, property management.
It's real.
It is Achilles' heel.
It'll make or break you.
Well,
You've got to really dial in on the property management. I think there's investors that I chat with, the single family. I'm just going to do it myself. Okay.
Well, we've hired people to help us, but they run kind of like what you have. You have people that run your system and do it your way and are only responsible for your project.
Right.
So we do that with most of our
love
stuff.
that.
Now, the project that you're talking about, we're working on a 90 unit with another partner, and that's probably another thing about commercial is we've learned, especially from class, it's a team sport.
Yeah,
Commercial, right? And that's something, honestly, I've been risk averse too. My wife has been risk averse too, is like having partners. And so we've got a partnership on this 90 unit project that we're working on in Edmond. And I can't give away too much, but we've got it under contract.
Nice.
It's going to need a heavy rehab.
It's life change.
Yeah, it's going to need a heavy rehab, $2 million.
But you already know what to get yourself into.
Exactly.
You died in
Through it
Chickasha.
once. Yep.
Yep, absolutely.
So you know what? You already have a system kind of written in your mind.
Did you learn anything not to do from the Chickasha thing that you're
Doing
taking over
now?
this
Yeah, that's a good
project?
question.
Great question.
I know. Dang, Zach.
Man, Zach, I wasn't prepared for that.
It's getting deep.
Not to do. I mean, we're kind of following the same steps. We've already talked to the city, and this city is going to be a big deal. So we've already,
good for them.
yeah, right.
Because it's an eyesore, right? I mean, it's not functional the way they want it.
It's a problem. So the city doesn't like it in its current state. So they want it fixed, and it sounds like they're willing to help us get it fixed and move quickly. But we've already had 6 or 7 contractors walk the building, and this one's
Why so many this time?
well, different types, right?
Different trades.
Yeah. So we've got kind of a GC that's going to do it, but we kind of want to help manage some of the repairs because when you're talking 90 units,
We're talking millions of dollars.
you
here.
save $100 a unit, $1,000 a unit. I mean, those numbers
They
add
add up
up
quick.
tremendously.
Well,
So,
I know I got drywall.
yeah,
18 cents a sheet makes a huge difference.
absolutely.
I mean, when you're doing a complete rehab, I've seen that before.
So, and that's something we learned on our smaller admin deal is we bought all of our supplies all at once, like all of our ceiling fans, all of our light fixtures, all of our faucets. We bought them on Black Friday and Cyber Monday, shipped it all to the house, and it looks amazing. And we save like 50% on the cost of all the
You gotta be
fixtures
savvy,
and
man.
things. So we're going to do the same thing with this one. That's kind of why we've been walking it. So we're getting our own LED lights. We're getting our own everything. So it's going to be a fun project.
Did you have a question there, Zach?
No, it reminds me. I've got a contact for you for HVAC, plumbing fixtures, and all that kind of stuff.
Sweet.
That could probably save you if you buy a bulk.
All right. So is there a specific game plan with the city or just kind of, keeping things under wraps? Are you going to be open with them? Have you let them walk the property? I mean, has the inspector been snooping around? I mean, you've called them, hey, I've got this under contract. What are my concerns, right? I mean, basically that's the dialogue that you've had with the city, and what have they said?
Yeah, so we did a records request, and you can't see on the podcast, but we got about a phone book's worth of paperwork over the last 20
From the
years
city.
From the city. So fire records, police records.
How many times have been out to the
city?
yeah.
Many times. So the city wants it to be nice, and
course.
they don't want to get called. And that's kind of their end up. But we've talked to the fire marshal. Their main concern initially is elevators. It's got fire suppression already throughout the whole building, which is super good. So their main concern to start
And they're
is,
up to code, like they've been inspected every year.
Yep.
Okay.
So they're green tagged, which is beautiful. The elevators, not. So that's the main concern.
It's not functional right now.
One of them is almost functional. The other one's not at all. So, but
Have you gotten bids for that? 60
right,
G's,
it's
right?
like 100 G's.
Yeah, it's like 100 per.
Yeah. And then I learned from Russell Hunt the other day, you can get a service contract on an elevator. So that's kind of
monthly
cool.
fee.
Yeah. How about that?
Ideal.
Yeah.
Let them maintain it. It just saves you money in the long run.
What's the vacancy on this? Is it pretty much vacant, so you don't have to worry about
Mostly
So you got
vacant.
holding
kicking everybody
costs.
out to start it?
Mostly vacant, which is good and bad, right? The banks don't love that. Some banks are like, oh, well, how are you going to make money? And we're like, well, we'll just do an interest reserve and make it work. And some things, oh, this is great. And others are not as impressed. So you did ask about, did we learn some things? The team sport deal, right, has been a big one on this one. And just trying to get everything ducks in a row before we close so we can hit it day one ground. As soon as we close, the floodgates open with contractors and everything.
Looks like, Zach, we need to roll up there.
Oh yeah, definitely.
We need to go.
Walk
We
through
need
it
just
at some point.
whenever we can get up there. We'll
Check it out.
Absolutely.
Yeah, just
we can
roofs,
have an
HVAC.
AIA walk.
Is it R22 1410A?
It's those like hotel.
Yeah, I like
single
those.
PTAC HVAC units.
I used to own a 10 unit that had those. I like those.
Yeah.
They're like, I can't remember. They were like $900 to swap them out back
It's like
in
a
the
hotel
day.
room.
So we've
Yeah.
we've actually found some that are $450 for really nice ones.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Well, so, what's your concerns? What are you nervous about right now? Just that the funding goes through. I mean, it's because you're at that teeter totter where it's not stable. Like my credit union, they denied me the other day. Not denied me, but we don't do dark buildings. Dark meaning that it went vacant.
Yeah.
And the class credit tenant that was in there is just paying the lease. We don't like that. And I
Right.
was like,
Well, somebody's paying for it.
Yeah. I'm like,
Numbers work.
wait a minute. The lease says 11 years, and they're like a bona fide Class A tenant,
Yeah.
but they don't like that. That's just the credit union, and I love the guy, and he's a great guy. But in this case,
Well, and I know who you're talking about. We won't even talk to him about this loan, right?
well, for fun, I was like Pan City for pain. I just was going to run it by him. I already have the money lined out, but I was just like, well, it's just interesting how a banker thinks. You know, our interest rates have gone up. No, really,
Shocking. But different banks that you talk to, I mean, we've heard prime minus a half, we've heard prime plus a half, we've heard all kind. You know, I mean, the spread
until
right
you
now.
close the dang thing, nothing's going to happen.
Yeah, but we're talking to. I mean, all kinds of banks. We flexed all of our bank contacts, and there's more.
There's got to be one or two that are like bitten. They need to fill their portfolio. This would be a great earner for them.
And at the end of it, if we hit our targets and we think we're pretty close on our rehab budget, we're going to be all in Edmond for $40,000 to $45,000 a unit.
And what's the rent?
The rent will be $800 a door.
Yeah, so it's 2%, and it's not,
no-brainer.
and it's Class B.
In Edmond, 1989 build. Like, come on now,
Good location. Yeah.
pitched roof.
This is called the legacy property.
This is gonna be a fun deal. So
This is where you'll dump your little baby ones for the big daddy.
that's right. That's right.
That's cool, man.
So we're having fun, but we're
Congratulations
probably,
is in order, man.
Well, we'll wait till we close to take that.
And I think Zach would probably say something. I mean, it's just the skill and the desire of being patient, right? I mean, would you ever think that you'd be at this position? Now, I know this for myself, and I don't mean to confess this, but I can't believe the deals that I'm doing today. And I know going through that Chickasha thing brought you to this position. But how do we articulate that? How do you tell that to your child? How do you tell that to your student? Like, be patient.
Yeah, you have to.
You're going to learn through this.
So I think we just call it doing the things, right? If you get up in the morning and you do the things, like what are the
Show up.
activities that get you where you need to go? And as simple as it is, I mean, one of the things that I do every morning, I spend 30 minutes with myself. And,
Yeah.
I read
Personal
some.
development.
Yeah, absolutely. And if I do that, and I write a lot, and if I do that and I go back and look at the times in my life that I did those things, I'm super successful. And then if I go dark on that for 3 or 4 months,
Yep.
the wheels stop
It's
turning.
weird. That's exactly where I'm at right now.
And it's just
I know the
like,
feeling.
and you know better, and it's easy to do, and it's easy not to do.
Dude, I'm about to drop that podcast today because that's exactly where I'm at. I just now got into my discipline of running. I've been watching too much TV. I'm like, what the F is wrong with me?
Right.
Like, not doing personal development on a, more of a casual level, more not as an intentional level.
Yeah,
And you don't get good deals.
absolutely.
You don't grow.
And it's because when you're doing those things, you're talking to people, you're in the mindset, you're bringing that into your life.
good, man.
And so
good.
I think that's to articulate that, it's like, and the kids have kind of seen the progression, right? I mean, they don't like the South Side apartment. Like, Dad, this one's scary, but we'll go to the Edmond with
I'm
you.
gonna beat my son
And
if he
I'm
said
like-
that. You
I'm
getting
like,
paid, son.
Yeah, stop with that. And I'm like,
It's
these
an
are
asset.
amazing assets, and these are super nice people, right? And
Yeah,
it's
they need a home too.
and if we picked right and Capitol Hill develops the way we hope so, that thing's going to be a rock star place. We'll see.
I know they just finished the bike park down there. They just connected it.
Well, they just
the
did
bike
they
trail.
just did a special assessment on taxes to do something with the roads down there. So they just drilled us for like $800 special assessment. So they better be doing something nice.
Wow, it's exciting. I'm telling you, Oklahoma City is exciting. It is growing leaps and bounds. I mean, the traffic is off the charts now. I mean, it's just, you could tell, just commercial properties all up on I-35. I was somewhere the other day. Was it? I can't remember. I'm trying to think where I was driving over by Nectar, and they developed all this area. Like 150th used to be nobody out there.
150th Penn is apartments as far as the eye can see.
I mean,
Just stuff going everywhere.
Just in like just houses throwing up in Midwest City, like even on Midwest Boulevard.
Yeah,
there's these like military-looking compounds. Just, I mean, there's not enough housing. I mean, it's just an amazing time and season. I just love your perspective, Happy Investor, and I'm just excited that you finally got what you've been working so diligently to find. I mean, that's the cream of the crop, man. And I hope that goes through you. I mean, it's not going to be easy. I mean, I got hit with a couple blows the other day, and if you can handle this, you can handle that. And if you can handle Chickasha, you handled it beautifully. Now you're moving on.
Well, and you want to grow to be the person that solves a bigger problem.
That's it.
Right? And
Jinx.
so
Boom.
That's really it. So
Well,
how do you grow to that person? It's like, I want that problem. I want the problem of finding financing.
I don't want that problem, but I got to have to deal with that problem.
But I want to find financing for a 90 unit, because if I can find it for a 90, then I can probably find it for 200.
That's right.
And so that's through this process. I mean, I have been blasting everybody I know. I've got a friend that's a really good friend of mine that is friends with somebody who has a ton of money in a trust. And so our current deal is now before that trust for a private money loan. I don't even know this person.
That's awesome.
But
that's why I love private money.
It's incredible.
You can do anything.
Also the power of networking.
Absolutely, right. And I was actually calling him to get a hold of another contact of his, and he's like, let me put you in touch with this lady. And so he does via text message, and she knows about me because this guy's worked with me for a while, and I've helped him buy some rent houses, and I know about her because she helped this guy with his brewery. So
Cool.
I mean, we know about each other.
Yeah.
So it was just like, hey, my friend George says that you're a rock star and you might be able to help me. And she says, oh, you're a friend of George, you're a friend of mine. This is what I need. And I'll pitch it to the trust board tomorrow when I'm having a meeting with them. So your timing is perfect. And I'm like,
wow.
That's
gotta
just
be faint.
Right.
So let's raise money right now.
Boom.
How much money do you need for this to get the loan? Are you doing the whole 100%, or are you trying to get the percentage so you can get it funded?
Yeah, so we're kind of going at it two different ways. First thing, we need a couple million to pay off the existing loan. If we can get $2 million, that would get us a long way down the road.
Just to crush that first loan.
Total project cost, we'd like to be in the 3.6, 3.7 range.
So you're doing like would you like, of course, obviously like one big person.
It'd be a lot easier with one big person because...
But if someone's listening to this and they got a couple $100,000 in the bank, maybe you can raise it that way.
So that 3.6, 3.7 you're all in, at the end of the day, the thing's worth 7 though.
At least.
Okay. So it's a really safe investment for somebody that's got cash sitting there.
Absolutely.
Well, the best thing is to get one person, right?
Yeah.
But if you need to get 10 people at 400, or and 9 people at 400, whatever.
Yeah, and today in as-is condition, I mean, if you were just going to write a check for it, between $3 and $3.5 million would be where
as is
right
so
now.
It's a no-brainer.
So the upswing, the value play is worth about 7.
Absolutely.
And to get you to that point, it's going to take you, what's your total rehab time? 90 units.
We're thinking a year, 18 months at the most. But we think we can get it done in a year. We're paying for speed. That's why we've got so many contractors. It's like we're going to have,
an army of HVAC, an army of electricians, not one.
4 guys building kitchens, ready to go. Kind of work towards the middle. Whoever gets there first, and you eat what you kill in this deal.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I've done it, 280 units. But I've only done them in blocks. Because we wanted,
and that's what we'll do. We'll do 30 or 40 at a time, and then lease behind us, and then do 30 or 40 at a time, and then lease behind us, and kind of roll that way. Because otherwise, you don't want all of them tore up.
Have you? Obviously, I know you've done this, but what was the water bill?
It's Edmond, so everything is connected. The total bill for the whole building, water, utilities, the highest one has been like 6 G's, but it hasn't been very rented. So if you extrapolate that, it's a big number.
Okay, cool. All right, that's it for me. It was wonderful to get to know you, Mike, and I would love to know more about the Eye Institute. You have 2 locations. Didn't know that. I'm about to go in there, ladies and gentlemen. I am I'm on my last contact. I got like 30 days.
I've been on this guy for a year,
and it was weird. Zach's wife really encouraged me, and because I spent the night over at their house. We had a good time in Dallas, and I couldn't make it to Oklahoma City, so I just crashed at Norman. It's like, okay, man, Zach, it's okay if I crash. He's like, well, we have a guest bedroom. It's like, let me text my wife. I was like, oh, great. So anyway, they were nice to let the savvy landlord crash at their
We had
crib.
a celebrity in the house.
So I wake up and I'm like, I don't put my contacts in, and she's already awake, and she's like, I was like, I can't see you, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm blind in one eye, deaf, dumb, and blind in one eye, and she's like, you need to get this surgery. I had it done, and she's like blinking at me,
Yeah.
and I'm like, you could see 20/20. She's like, yeah, like.
Same day.
And-
She said it was amazing.
And I guess I just needed to hear that because
Yeah.
I'm just scared because when my keratoconus, you know, the technology wasn't there, and my superstar doctor, she's like kind of was anti because they were just doing cross linking.
Yeah.
And that the data wasn't there, and you know, you're dealing with your vision.
Sure.
I kind of like the vision.
I mean, that's kind of important, right? You use your eyes every single second when you're awake.
Well said. So I'm coming in there, man. I know I'm coming. It would be great if we could do a whole podcast on it. I was thinking about John today. I was like, well, you know, maybe we could trade out here.
Well, because of privacy, but there's another investor that you know that just recently had surgery with us, and she was discussing it, and so you know.
All right. Well, I'm coming. I was going to ask you today. Anyway, any other questions, Zach?
I'm just anxious to go walk this new 90 unit deal and see the
we're going to
progress
do it. So
going
we're going to set up a time.
and hear about it.
Well, and once we close it, then we give a little more detail on.
Yeah, when you
on
close
all
it,
of
just let us know.
Right.
We're 100% behind you. That's, you know, what we do with AI Advanced Investor Alliance is like we're a family of sense. You know, we don't want you to get be out there alone. I think that's the power of being a part of a network is you have this team around you, you know, that just like yesterday, I don't know, did I text you that I needed a contractor? Well, you know, I can't remember, but I texted like 3 or 4 people in our group. Boom. Within 2 hours, I already got those bids going because commercial's different than single family. But that's the power. So we'll be there for sure.
Definitely.
All right. That's it.
Thanks for listening to the AIA podcast. Stay motivated by listening to our other powerful episodes at advancedinvestoralliance.com.